Daniel Roberts,
And I'm Roger Price.
and you're listening to Artifacts from Highline, where we'll be bringing you stories about some of the artifacts and exhibits we have at the Highland Heritage Museum.
And some of the artifacts we have in the collections room also that are of interest to maybe different people. So that's we're going to try and introduce some new topics to the museum.
So thank you for tuning in. I hope you find some of these interesting stories and enjoy.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Roger Price, and I'm here with Daniel today, and we're in the museum, and we're going to try to the Highline Heritage Museum, and we're in the radio booth, and we're going to try to discuss one of our uh, things inside the museum in the gallery. It's typewriters, and typewriters are, I don't know, I don't think they're used much anymore that I can think of. So we have uh, about 15 of them on display here, or 12 or so, but it ranges from way back when to way back when, yeah. So Daniel, I'm gonna turn it over to you to kind of uh, talk about some of these different ancient typewriters.
Well, I think there's a few authors that still use them today, just preference or whatnot. But yeah, so just talk about a little bit of the history of typewriters in general. So typewriters, kind of some of the earlier iterations. There was in 1801 or 1808, around that time, there was a Pellegrino Turri who had created a sort of typewriter for his blind friend, Countess Carolina Pontoni Zono. I
Yeah.
apologize for the pronunciation, but it was to help her to write. Moving on, in 1829, there's an American named William Austin Burt who created and patented a machine he called the typographer. And that was supposed to aid in office work and used a lever to press characters onto paper one at a time. So not exactly efficient on typing, but it was a start. Uh,
Hmm.
a working model that he had created for the patent was unfortunately destroyed in the 1836 fire that I guess destroyed like that patent office. But moving on, then in 1865, there's a pastor, Reverend Rasmus Smalling Hansen, who invented the Hansen writing bowl. This was an interesting looking thing. It was kind of like a spherical looking object. I'm gonna see if I can have a photo put up on our YouTube for you guys to see. But it was a commercially successful typewriting product, and he made further refinements until the 1878 model, which was most well known. It had an arrangement of 52 keys on a brass hemisphere, making it sort of look like a pincushion, and it could often be found in European offices throughout the 1900s. Uh, in 1868, Americans Christopher Scholes, Frank Hall, Carlos Glidden, and Samuel Soule from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, patented their own typewriter, which was called the Scholes and Glidden typewriter. And it was produced by E. Remington and Sons. So the same Remington that, produced the
Oh,
firearms, that kind of thing.
yes.
Scholes was a Milwaukee newspaperman, poet, and part-time inventor, and was the primary creator of this machine. And one important thing about this typewriter is the one that had the QWERTY keyboard. If you've ever noticed, like on the keyboards even today with like computers, you'll see like with the key layout, it's like QWERTY.
Hmm.
And it was what you see in future typewriters and yeah, keyboards today. The design choice was likely due to separating frequently used pairs of type bars that were used because type bars was a type of device on earlier key typewriters, so they wouldn't get stuck during the printing point. So like if you hit them too quickly and they were too close together, they could get kind of tangled. And so this was to believe it might be that was to try to minimize that.
Yeah, I remember that they stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. I only have a little bit of experience using a typewriter. By the time I was growing up, we had computers. But an interesting thing about it was that it only typed in capital letters, and it also was a decorative machine. It had heavy painted flower, or had painted flowers on it, had decals on it, and it also looked somewhat like a sewing machine. And part of the reason that might have been is it was manufactured by the machine department of Remington. So, it kind of would make sense that they might keep with the designs and the general look. Uh, Another American typewriter that was created was the Calligraph. With the Calligraph 1 coming in 1880. It too could only type in uppercase, but later models would come out with an uppercase and lowercase keys, but they were two separate keys. The lowercase keys were these white keys that were in the middle of the keyboard or the typewriter, and the uppercase ones were on the side. And then another one that did something similar to that was the Smith Primer, and that was also popular at the time. But those white keys from the pictures I saw, the white keys for the lowercase seemed to be at the bottom, and then the uppercase were at the top. So not exactly helpful on typing quickly, but
Hmm.
I mean, you wouldn't be typing in all caps, so that's a bonus. There's another important development came in 1897 with the Underwood 1 typewriter, which let typists see what they were typing being fully visible. The initially designed ones, when you were typing, you there was like a flap or something that you'd had to pull aside to see actually what you were typing.
Oh, I see.
So
The carriage wasn't visible, I guess, huh?
exactly, which seems like a weird design, but I mean, early iterations. It was initially designed by Franz Wagner in the US in 1892. But it was taken over by John Underwood in 1895, and that's where it got its namesake. This typewriter would also be the standardized design going forward with only slight variations. The specific model that was the most popular was the Underwood number 5. And essentially, when you think of like an old typewriter, you're probably thinking of that. Uh, it was the typewriter that was kind of used until the IBM Selectric in 1961 came out. It was built between the late 1900s until 1932, and millions of them were created, and they were used by secretaries, journalists, government officials, and others throughout the first half of the 20th century. Some of the reasons given its popularity were at the time the preferred type bars that allowed faster typing, front stroke mechanism, so you could see what you're typing, and most of the typewriters at the time were those understroke the ones I mentioned earlier where you wouldn't see, and that QWERTY keyboard. There's also ribbon inking, which were easier to care for and replace less often. Another keyboard or typewriter that was made was in 1925. Remington came out with its first electric typewriter, and it used a northeast motor to power the typing function. 10 years after that, IBM would come out with their own electric typewriter, but the stronger success of electric typewriters came around 3 decades later in 1961 with that earlier mentioned IBM Selectric typewriter, and that it used a spherical type ball instead of those type bars. And I guess that helped to minimize or get rid of that whole issue of jams.
Oh, sure. Great.
Oh, for sure. And then a little bit more. We have, like Roger mentioned, we have a number of typewriters here. We have, like, for example, we have a 1938 Underwood Noiseless, which, despite its name, it wasn't silent. It was more of it made like a thunking sound instead of a clacking sound. And as mentioned earlier, these Underwoods were manufactured under Remington. And something that a lot of them would have was like an Art Deco styling often. So, look a little bit fancier. And but it also had a lighter print impression when you were typing, so that was kind of a downside of it. The 1902 Remington standard that we also have was one of the earlier machines that had that QWERTY keyboard that I mentioned. And they were also fairly heavy, and more often than not, they're office machinery rather than personal tools. That those ones still made use of that rear strike where you wouldn't see what you were typing. The 1906 Underwood we have was part of that grouping of typewriters I mentioned earlier, where they were like super popular. That the Underwood number five, there's three, four, and five, and this is probably where it would have fallen under. We also have this 1917 Woodstock, and it had apparently a smooth key action, but more specifically, it had a wooden base components and accents, and that's where it would have gotten its name. We also have a 1932 Burroughs Electric, and that predated the widespread use of electric typewriters. Um, and the company itself, though, wasn't really a typewriting company. They majored in making adding machines and business equipment. There was also a 1924 Royal that we have, which was apparently known for its durability and speed. And around this time, introduced the basket shift mechanisms that made typewriting feel lighter. I guess you had to press a little bit heavier on the keys back in the day. And the 1925 one, we also have basically improved like ergonomics or a few slight tweaks. You can't really expect something different after 1 year. But we also had a 1949 Royal that apparently was known for its sleek styling, and often they'd have glass keys. So that's kind of cool,
Yeah, God,
rather than like plastic ones. We also had a 1952 Remington Rand, which was during that transition era between the manual keyboards to the electric typewriters. And lastly, there was also a 1957-58 Olympia SM3, which was known for extremely precise mechanics and smooth typing. And apparently, many authors even use them today for the ones that prefer
oh, so they're
typewriters.
still in use.
Oh, there's the people that just have preference. They might like that using a typewriter or just
Uh-huh, sure. Yeah, that's nice. I mean, there probably is a lot of people that have uh, they feel familiar with one and they stick with it.
it,
And well, that's interesting, all the different types. And I know we have maybe around 12 of like you say, down in the gallery that on display. Some are work and others not so good, but that's okay. They're pretty old, most of them anyways.
Oh yeah, and it's just interesting that QWERTY layout I mentioned earlier. That's still used for keyboards, like for computers today. It's just something that stuck, and so it's rather remarkable to think of the keyboard you're using for your computer. That whole layout came decades before computers were even a thing.
Oh, yeah. Wow. No, that's cool. I'm glad that we have that nice display of those down in the gallery down in the museum. So that's neat.
Absolutely. Well, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered it pretty good, Daniel. You went over all the different ones that we have on display here. So that's uh, that's a good introduction into the something that's probably been forgotten about is the world of typewriters and stuff. So,
Exactly. Well, Yes, thank you folks for listening in, and thank you for forgiving me for occasionally calling typewriters keyboards. But
Huh.
I hope you found something interesting here, and I hope you'll join us next time.